Hashem Sfasai Tiftach Ufia Gitilasecha. We're now in the second parak of Amos. By now, we already have in our memory, Ko Amar Hashem al Shlosha Pishei blank val arba lo ashivenu. 3 sins the nation did whatever, and on the 4th lo ashivenu, I will not forgive them. Kind of like a refrain, a commercial that you remember in your brain. Here again, Amos is so smart. He's using the exact same wording, and the people around. Remember, he is from Yehuda, and he is prophesizing in the north. And so this is not something, he's really there. They don't always get along, the north and the south kingdoms. And he is pretty much the enemy. And he's giving a prophecy, but he's so smart because he's now gone through all the different nations, what they've done wrong. And he continues with Moab. What did Moab do wrong? So I have an understanding that Moab killed the son of Edom and used its ashes to smear on their walls. And it's not really clear, but it was, number one, it was very barbaric. And number two, as a result, the people, and this all happened in Malachim Beis, as a result, the people then thought it was a Klal Yisrael, and so somehow they reaped the punishment of this of what took place. And so it's a little bit unclear exactly what happened, but again, there is a level of cruelty. HaKadosh Baruch Hu hates cruelty. That does not fly. And so we have, again, the last of the kingdoms outside of Israel is Moab. We know that Moabim and Ammonim are not invited by Kahal Hashem because they have midos ra'os. They are not the women. We are not allowed to marry into the men. Moavi v'lo Moavis. We're not allowed to marry the men of Moab. Now, after that, we have Ko Amar Hashem al Shosha Pishe Yehuda val arba lo ashivenu. Why does he start with Yehuda? So perhaps we can understand that just historically, it's a little bit a deeper question, because historically, Yehuda was the source of the Beis Hamikdash. They were the ones that were led into exile last, so it doesn't even make historical sense for them to be discussing Yehuda. But if we go according to Amos's plan, remember, he is from Yehuda. He is from the other portion of Israel in the divide, and he right now is not exactly on the up because he's giving Musar. So number one, he's giving Musar. Who wants to listen to Musar? Number two, he's kind of from enemy lines. So he's very smart. Right now, the people every day, they're listening to, and down with the enemy, and down with the enemy. This is very great. And he's smart. He's gathering more of a crowd. And now the crescendo is, I'm going to tell you what Yehuda did wrong. Why? Because again, great. They're the bad people, and so HaKadosh Baruch Hu attacks them. And so again, it's this reflection of what humankind really can hear in terms of Musar. And so he starts with Yehuda, and what does he say? Al Masam es Toras Hashem v'chukab lo shamaru v'yasum kizavehem asher halchu avosam acharehem. What did you do? So first, we know they did the 3 cardinal sins, but then ma'asam, you hated the Torah, the chukim, and the mishpatim. That's you. Just what did you do wrong? You did not care about the Torah, and you did lahachas, and you just didn't nothing. There was no beauty in the Torah anymore. There was no beauty of learning Torah lishma, of following the ways, the chukim. Everything was bad, and you then served idols. You were partners with idols instead of partnering with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so Hashem says, I'm going to destroy Yehuda and the palaces. And that was a very general, very, very small anecdote about Yehuda, because here's the real kicker. Ko amar Hashem al shosha pishei Yisrael val arba lo ashivenu. Now we're talking. This is the main message, the message to Yisrael. What did Yisrael do? Al machram bekesef tzadik ve'evyon ba'avor na'alayim. So what does that mean? That you sold an innocent man for money and a poor man in order to lock the fields, or just for a pair of shoes. So a few things. First of all, there is a social injustice that's happening here. That there's the poor and there's the wealthy, and the poor are being taken advantage of. They're not being considered, and the wealthy are just getting wealthier. Not only that, the amounts that are being sold, people are being sold into slavery. Slavery? Are you kidding? Us, Jewish people who were slaves, are selling our brothers into slavery? Or it talks about machram bekesef, that maybe it's referring all the way back historically to Yosef HaTzadik. When Yosef and his brothers sold, where Yosef was sold, there's already a sinas chinam, and perhaps that's the reference to just baseless hatred. But this is all baseless. The justice system is corrupt. But what's interesting, it's for so little, either because the people who are selling them, like there's such a divide between the wealthy and the poor, and that should never be in society, or they're doing it like just lahachas, just to get people to look bad. They don't need the money, and they're doing it just baseless, like not even for their own gains, that they're making the poor feel horrible and the good people just go into dirt. And then, so that's the justice and the social injustice that's happening. But then they are doing disgusting things with znus and all of that, and it's just so society gets worse. What they're doing with wine, what they're doing in the temples, and so there's just an overall sense of disarray. And Hamas, it's the same reasoning that the world was destroyed in the time of the Mabul. And so HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that he's going to destroy everything, and it's going to be terrible. And he goes through in Pasuk Yud Aleph, he goes through just the idea of what, not only just, the usual, this is 3 sins, and on the 4th, I don't forgive, which, by the way, as an aside, some say that, what does it mean? It means habits. If you do something 3 times, by the 4th time, it's become a habit, which is kind of like what Amos did when he kept on saying the same refrain. It becomes a habit. Now, on the one hand, the habit is wonderful, because at least we're doing it. Someone had said, Rabbi Rosner mentioned that, I'm just so happy with my knees. At least they bend during Shemona Esrei. They know how to bend, because, my head is in the clouds. It's somewhere else, but at least my knees know what to do. So essentially, there's this idea of really we're in a habit, and a habit could be good, but then a habit's also bad, because it's we're doing something and it's ingrained. It's already ingrained, this social injustice and meanness, and not listening to the Torah, and doing everything for the wrong reasons, and avodah zarah. All of those things have become ingrained. And Hashem says, I took you out of Mitzrayim. How could I took you out of Mitzrayim from slavery? How in the world could you do this? And also, I gave you everything. And what did I give you? I gave you Nevi'im u'bacharehim l'Nazirim, and I gave you leaders, and also I gave your young people to become Nazirim. Why would our young people become Nazirim? So it's really interesting. Rabbi Rosner mentions that that a Nazir is a very zealot person who takes on extremes. And in the youth, it makes more sense to take on extremes because we have more desires. But as you get older and you have a family, the family nature, the nature of the family holds and sustains us to a point where we don't have to take on extremes. We could be good just because we're part of a family. We have, everything's kind of has mitigated our desires, and essentially that's really what happened. There are 2 things that happened in the Midbar, that suggested that. The first is when we got the mitzvah of sota, the mitzvah with the waters that the sota had to drink. On the one hand, you might think, oh my gosh, she was so bad, and then Hashem makes her explode. But really, it was Hashem's way of trying to keep the nature of the family together. because when she drank those waters, because of circumstances that were perhaps murky, Hashem was saying, I'm testifying because I want this family to remain biachad, together. Similarly, when we were taken out of Mitzrayim, we were given degalim, we were given shvatim, we were given divides. And then why? Because Hashem said, now that you're divided into where you want to be, now I want you to focus on family and focus. And so Hashem loves and cares about the focus of the family because the family is so important. But when you're young and you don't have a family, then you can take on Nazirus, which I thought was a really interesting point. And Hashem says, so for that reason, there's going to be pain and there's going to be suffering and there's going to be different things. And so we end the Perek really understanding that Amos is just really a leader with real creativity. He understands people don't like to hear bad things. We have to creatively kind of get them along. Sometimes we have to do it by being kind and just and sweet and do it in a sweet talking way. Sometimes we have really hard messages. He has really hard messages. The people are really not doing what's right. They're not being be'emes the way that a Jew is supposed to be. Hashem says, are you kidding? Slavery? Are you kidding? Idolatry in this way for what I gave you from where you come? This is beneath you. How you're treating the poor and the innocent like for nothing? This is not the Jewish way. But he can't get to that message until he kind of leads them in. And perhaps it's for us to also recognize there are times that we have to look within ourselves. And Hashem, we have different holidays. We have different ways. We don't have Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur every day. We have a lot of different ways that we can, kind of come into Hashem because, and that's important too. It's important to find the messages in everything. But sometimes, we're hit over the head with it because it's just, it's just the time of the year or it's needed. So Amos has to do something that's tough. He does it in a very brilliant way, and it also does it in a jingle for us to remember. Habits are good, but getting into the right one. So, al shosha pishay, al arba lo ashevenu is just a really easier way to kind of remember and to put us in our place.